Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, CJ Llewellyn, who's here to share with us her new book, Chakras and the Vagus Nerve. Tap into the healing combination of subtle energy and your nervous system. So have you ever considered that we have this intricate series of systems that help us navigate our world both as humans and spiritual beings? Well, today's show is going to dive into just that. So CJ Llewellyn is a licensed professional counselor in her own private practice. She works with clients struggling with trauma and addiction, and she is a trained internal family systems therapist and certified in EMDR. She uses polyvagal theory as a foundation for her work, and she is a Reiki master and curious observer of the human condition. So let's welcome to the show, CJ Llewellyn.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. So how did you make this chakra and vagus nerve connection?
Through my work. I actually had probably been seeing it for at least a decade. I am a trauma therapist, licensed professional counselor, trauma trained. I do a lot of body-mind modalities like EMDR, internal family systems. And when we would be in the middle of processing an issue, a target, a problem, I would notice that the messaging was not only just working through the vagus nerve, it was presenting, depending upon what the issues were, through their chakras. Through polyvagal theory, we learn to sort of listen to the three states that our clients are in, and we're working very closely with tracking their nervous system. But when all of a sudden we'd be working deeply with survival issues, and my clients are feeling this down in their groin, down in their root chakras, like, this is kind of fascinating. Or when we would work with issues of attachment, the relationship that a client might have had, early relationship with their parents or their caretakers, and it was presenting in the solar plexus. It's like, there is something more here going on. And I would just observe it through the years. And then I finally realized, oh, there's an actual story here that I need to tell. So that's how that evolved. And it's been really fascinating.
It is a very fascinating topic, and the first time I've heard about it done in this way. So I was very excited that we get to talk about this today. For those who are new to vagus nerve and chakras, so how does that work within our body?
So breaking down, they're basically two different systems, but my whole thesis here is they're really an extension of the same thing. But let me break them down as if they are two different, because that's how our world has been sort of treating them. The vagus nerve is our safety mechanism. It is built into our body. We are constantly gauging, our human self is constantly gauging if we are safe and what to do with this. And it's built into our system from, before we are born. There are basically three states that the vagus nerve tracks. One would be safety. That is that social engagement that we have when we're with people, we're enjoying them, we feel safe, we're listening to them very, succinctly to them. We're looking at eye movement, facial features, the tone of voice. That is when we are in our state of safety. Then we can get into the mobilization, which is that people hear the sympathetic nervous system, that sympathetic branch, which is, okay, we're no longer safe because we just heard a car screeching and we listen differently. Our body tightens, our neuroception, which is a word that is used in polyvagal theory a lot. Our neuroception shifts because suddenly we're listening to a wider realm. We're listening to the environment, not the person we're sitting here with. We're uncertain if we should run or fight. Then we have the third state, which is immobilization. That's when we've been running, we've been fighting, we have no other recourse but to collapse or pass out or dissociate. So if we can be aware of these states within our system, and that takes some fine tuning to be present to our body to do that, then we're working from that perspective of what our system is registering for us. People who've had early childhood trauma, their system misreads cues. So people who've had some developmental trauma, where the people that were supposed to love and protect them did not, cues might misfire. They might believe they're with somebody safe because their neuroception's off, or they might believe they're with somebody dangerous that is not. So that's the rewiring that I do as a trauma therapist. That's how I help people go back in and help their system, alleviating trauma patterns. But so that is utilizing the vagus nerve is key to how we can gauge our safety and where we are in the world, where we are physically in the world, and who we are with and how we are. The chakras are energy centers that anybody who has studied yoga, I'm sure, has heard of the chakras. Chakras are energy centers that present all over our body. My discussion is more about the 7 main chakras within the torso, because that's what I was seeing, processing as we were working through safety issues, rewiring trauma issues, clearing stuff from their systems. And so the 7 main chakras, what I break down in the book, I can go through them if you want. The 7 main chakras seem to have different, I'm calling them dimensions to them, which is very much aligned with what you hear through the thousands of years of yogis who have expressed what the chakras represent as our human condition. So one's etheric, one is physical. However, it appears to me as I'm working with them that the etheric energy aligns with the vagus nerve, and what the messaging in the vagus nerve, which, by the way, is also connected to our major organs. So what messaging is coming through the nervous system is also presenting outward into our chakras. So, I'm hypothesizing that the vagus nerve, what it represents, extends outward into our chakras and even out further into our energy field or our auras. So that's kind of how I'm seeing us work as humans, spiritual beings in this human body that we've got.
My goodness, what a great way of explaining that. And I really appreciate how you talk about this connection in your book with the vagus nerve and the chakras and how that can promote healing.
Yeah. I am a proponent of, we have this higher energy, whatever you want to call it, that soul energy, that higher self, that light that we all have within us. And taking any theology out of it, it's the light we come in with. And when we leave, it's the light that leaves our body. So putting it that way, when we can stay connected to that light, which is the essence of who we are, that spiritual essence of who we are, that light is going to guide us. When we have trauma in our bodies, when we are misreading cues, because we are also a huge paradox, we are spiritual and we are human. We are carbon in our form, and our bodies are trying to keep us alive on this planet. So the paradox comes in when it's hard for us to access that energy because our safety mechanisms, our wiring might be misfiring because it's still trying to keep us alive. It's just maybe misinterpreting scenarios. So when we can heal that trauma in our bodies, we can access that higher, wiser aspect, energy of us.
It seems that everyone has trauma in one sense or another. And
Yeah.
not everybody, at least most people that I know have had some type of trauma that's happened to them during their lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I know you talk about doing a body scan. Is that where we start to try to really identify where we're at with our body?
We can. That body scan really came from the Buddhist mindful tradition of just checking in with our bodies from top down, breaking it down, forehead, muscles, where's our tension, and keep going down into noticing what our shoulders, our arms, how our body is feeling in the space that we're in. That's a really good check-in for us to start with. And it's very much, like I said, based in the mindfulness tradition. what I have found through the years, and what still surprises me, and it makes me more determined in my work, is that we are very afraid of what our bodies are telling us because we may have not been able to differentiate an extreme neuroception response, psychoneurological response versus an actual emotion, because we've learned to be conditioned maybe to overreact when this thing happens, push back when this thing happens. So what happens is over time, I think we just get confused about what the messaging in our body is telling us. So yes, a body scan is something that would be a really great start just to settle in and start trusting what our body is telling us. And that learning over time, befriending our body, feeling embodied, actually helps us be more spiritual in the long run because we can trust the messaging center of that.
You have these writing prompts throughout the book, and one I'd like to touch on is thanking our body. And so,
Oh, I
why
love
would
that.
we?
Yeah.
Yes, I thought it was just amazing too. But I'd love for you to share with our listeners why we would do that.
Well, as someone I've worked in eating disorders facilities, I've worked with trauma through the years, and I think we are so conditioned to dislike our physical selves, and I think that starts young, and it starts with a lot of the imaging from Madison Avenue and years ago, not being complete enough, not being beautiful enough, not being tall or short enough, and I think we have such covert and overt messages throughout our childhood into adulthood about how we don't live up to some standard in our body. And then, of course, if we've had any violations to our body, that, just turns into more distrust. So being able to, at the very least, start just with a glimmer of light, being able to appreciate what our body does for us is a start. Our bodies get us through this world. If we did not have our bodies, this light within us could not have the experience it's having on this planet. So yeah, I think it's a start, just a basic gratitude to appreciate, this form we have chosen to take on. I mean, that's my belief system here.
In your book, you talk about emotional boundaries. And I'd love for you to share with us what those are and what are some of the emotional boundary violations.
Absolutely. And, going back a little bit to the body image thing, emotional boundaries might be, they're not clear. They're clear in that we sense them and we feel them, but we are also told perhaps to dismiss the messaging we're getting from them. So emotional boundaries could be anything from, oh, you don't really believe that. We don't believe this is a family. What's wrong with, you've gained a little weight, right? People who think it's okay to comment on other people's bodies or weight, or emotional boundaries they're psychological boundaries in that they are defying that circle around us, this energy psychological circle around us that we hold on to or should hold on to as individuals. And so emotional boundaries are tricky. Someone hauls off and hits us. We know we have been physically violated. We can see that physical boundary that's been violated. If someone steals our car, we have had a physical violation of our boundaries. But if someone makes a side crack about, oh, the weight you've gained, or, oh, your spirituality is wrong, right? There's some spiritual boundaries too. Those are things that violate us on an energetic level. And always my work is to really deepen who we are as individuals, what we feel, what is true to us. Because the more we can drop down into that, the more we can know when someone has attempted to violate a boundary of ours on that psychological level.
I was real impressed in your book. You talk about the difference between anxiety and emotion. Mm-hmm. And it kind of had me stumped there for a little bit. I'd love for you to share that with our listeners too.
I know it's funny because every time I put that in a new client, they're like, what? What? No, it's not emotion. It's not. It's really a state of mind. And generally it's, I use terms like future tripping. We start believing that we are not safe about some hypothetical thing that's going on in our head. So we start thrumming back to the vagus nerve. We start our brain that's made something up starts thrumming down into our vagus nerve. We're not safe. You know, that thing that we probably don't want, but maybe we do, then maybe we don't want it, and suddenly we are off to the races in our sympathetic nervous system. So then our system, depending upon what the patterns have been, start firing off. Lack of safety in our system. It could be heart racing, lots of stomach issues because the vagus nerve attaches down into our digestive system and our stomach and the kidneys and everything. So depending upon what your particular or anybody's particular form of anxiety feels like, that is not a feeling. It's not an emotion. When we feel an emotion, even if it's a difficult one, like if we've had a loss, when we are allowing ourselves to actually feel the sadness of that loss, even though it may be an intense emotion, there's a grace to it. There's a softness to it. It's deeper. It has softer edges to it. And part of the work for all of us, I think, as human beings is sort of pull the layers off between a state of anxiety, a mind that mind is created and the body has generated the experience for, versus an actual emotion. And that's that sort of, that goes back to body scan, it goes back to noticing, it goes back to really paying attention to the subtle aspects so that we can discern. And when we struggle, that's why, people end up in my office, right? The anxiety gets too much. So we work on safety factors as well, because anxiety is about not feeling safe.
So if someone has a lot of different things going on, and it's really difficult for them to really kind of hone in on what it is that they're feeling, how do they go about that?
I think, first of all, to recognize, right? Sometimes we just kind of have this patterning that develops in our system, all sorts of different ways of that developing, and then we react from it. And I think for us to watch what our reactions are. Reactions are in response to something. They're not a response to something. The reaction is, oh my gosh, this is going on, or this is going on. So if we can see what patterns of reaction we've got, that's a huge, huge start. If we start understanding that every time I raise my voice, everybody runs, okay, then the work comes back at what happened before raising my voice? What happens for me? What am I thinking? What am I believing? Why am I reacting? And being able to go back and again repattern. I do believe that while it is really important for us to have that individual work, I don't think you can really get the clarity, right? Being by ourselves. We're too much in our own worlds without I call it the ballast, right? The weighted measure of, in this case, a therapist, to be able to see things and introduce concepts that you might not have. So there's it's a layered process. I think I see this.
You have so many great stories within your book. Is there one that you'd like to share with us?
It's really funny. And of course, I will tell you that I had to change the names to protect the innocent, so to speak. But the one that for some reason lately has been coming back into my head a lot that I shared in the book was a client we had done a lot of trauma work. I get emotional when I think about this. And she came in after a car accident, and she had grown up in a car. I mean, she had been in a car accident as a child, barely having any memories of this because she wasn't 3 years old, where her mom died. And there were all sorts of struggles that she had that didn't seem to connect to this thing, right? This trauma, because she couldn't remember it. So we had done all this work over a couple of years' time. We had gone back and processed those memories that she couldn't remember in her brain, but she had in her body. that's a big difference too, because sometimes we have a tendency to minimize those experiences because technically they don't make sense. The brain's saying there's no way to plant this into any memory. Anyway, so we had done all sorts of work, and then she had a car accident, and it was a fender bender. But given that it took her so long to get, clearing the trauma, feeling comfortable being able to drive, and all the work that went with that. And then when she came back in, she had a regular, normal response where she was jarred. This was a car accident. Car accidents are out of the realm of the norm. But she was able, through the work that we had done through the years, through the grounding, through the slowing down, knowing she was dissociating, because that was her go-to as a child. Get out of the body. This is too much. And really work through it in my office. And then we were able to just sort of be present to the actual feeling, the emotion that the car accident kind of brought up a sense of mourning for her mom. And we were able to hold the space for that because she was able to work through the traumatic responses in her body first. And I've just been thinking about that scenario and that client a lot. My clients stay with me a lot. I learn a lot from my clients. Hopefully they're learning a lot from me, but I also, just being present to their stories and their situations, I learn a lot from them too.
I'm sure you do. And we're going to learn a lot as we read your book. I know as everyone goes through it, there's so much great information within it that really makes sense. And you have science that backs it. One of the things that I was curious about is, you see so many people. What is like one theme that you seem to see a lot of?
It's ridiculously simple. I just had this conversation the other day. It's that we don't trust ourselves. We come in authentic, and then we get all sorts of messaging, survival messaging. This is how you're supposed to do it. We stop learning how to trust ourselves. That's the ridiculously simple theme that I see that threads through all my clients, and frankly, I think we all start distrusting that after a while. And so being able to really go back in to our true authentic self and ask what the questions are, ask what feels right for us. But it does take work. It takes almost clearing out a lot of the layers that have been put on us through our life experiences. And if they've been traumatic layers, and if there was addiction involved, there's a lot of rings in the tree before we can get back to the middle. But I would say that would probably be the biggest thing, is that we stop really genuinely trusting our own messaging.
So during the writing prompts that people do, I know you have one that they can kind of flush out what they're feeling. And it seems that people are so detached from their feelings right now.
Mm-hmm.
How do they determine, like, am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling angry? How do they kind of feel that out?
So that is about learning to trust the body, because the brain does beautiful work when we're doing math, when we're trying to find our way from point A to point B. The brain is linear for the most part. The brain stores information, but the body holds on to that deeper experience. And that's, again, why people sometimes distrust the body. And, I do this for a living. The other night just was sitting there, and all of a sudden I had this whoosh of anxiety. Like, I'm safe. I'm happy. I'm doing, but something in my system, that split second, some thought that I couldn't even hold on to expressed something in my system. And I had this moment of just that flush of anxiety. But if you can sit with that and say, oh, interesting. Okay, I'm just going to breathe through this. And in the book, we do talk about engaging in ventral vagal. That is the safety branch. That is the front of our vagus nerve. If we can start just engaging a little bit more in our breath. The yogis have had this spot on for thousands of years. Our Western thinking, our age of reason, kind of cut the head off from the body. But if we can go back in and just start, even when it feels difficult, trusting a little bit more in the body may be telling you there's something wrong, the body might be just having a moment, but those moments will pass if we can breathe through them. And slow exhales. I am a big proponent of that. In polyvagal theory and Stephen Porges's work, he talks about how our heart rate lowers on the exhale. And there's all sorts of studies that show that people who sing in choirs have very good ability to sort of manage their nervous system, because they are constantly sort of manage and contain the exhale and the breath and the tone and everything that goes along with being in a choir or a band, by the way, especially wind instruments.
My goodness. Well, where can our listeners connect with you, CJ, and be part of your community and learn more about your work?
I am on Facebook as CJ Llewellyn and 7 Dimensions, CJ Llewellyn. I'm on Twitter, and I'm actually kind of having fun on TikTok right now, doing some videos here and there. So join me there, and I'm going to be building out the website and having some more opportunities to really engage with my readers.
Well, CJ, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much, Marianne, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, CJ. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Chakras and the Vagus Nerve, tapping into the healing combination of subtle energy and your nervous system. Chakras and the Vagus Nerve is available to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And remember, support our indie bookstores. You can also purchase this book directly from the publisher, Llewellyn, at llewellyn.com. We're going to pause here for a quick moment, and we'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
With Breath Hub, you'll experience the transformative power of breath as it harmonizes your body, mind, and spirit. Recommended by experts in fitness, sports, psychology, and medicine. Meet the scientific way of being well. Breath Hub. Breathe better, live better.
Are you a coffee lover who wants to make a difference? Look no further than Fire Department Coffee, a veteran-owned business that gives back to support first responders in need. Each batch of coffee is freshly roasted right here in the USA by a dedicated team of first responders and coffee experts. So when you enjoy a cup of Fire Department coffee, you're not only drinking high-quality coffee, you're supporting members of your community. Start your day with a coffee that gives back. Visit firedepartmentcoffee.com. That's fire, D-E-P-T, coffee.com.
The book Terminal Cancer is a Misdiagnosis, authored by Danny Carroll, is on sale at Amazon now. Licensed psychologist and psychotherapist Tessa Antia-John-Guerra commented, "This is one of the most empowering books on the topic of cancer you will ever read." Award-winning author T.L. Needham commented, "This recommended book can be understood by anyone seeking answers, hope, and alternatives to a terminal diagnosis. Buy it now on Amazon.com.
Pandemonium. Fast forward 20 years. A U.S. president seizes control of all U.S. missiles, the power grid, the banking system, and every computer in America as he hides in an underground bunker. Pandemonium, a captivating sci-fi thriller where a hidden war, psychics, aliens, artificial intelligence, and transcendental love collide with the latest media technology. Pandemonium, live to all devices. Get your copy on paperback or digital. Free sample at getpsychic.org.
Hello, Dr. Cutler here. Do you experience bloating, heartburn, food craving, bowel irregularity, food sensitivities, weight issues? If you do not digest your food, you may be deficient in macronutrients, which your body needs for optimal health. DrEllenCutler.com teaches that this is an enzyme deficiency. I believe the most important supplement is a full-spectrum digestive enzyme, Dr. Ellen's Way Digestive Enzymes. Hear more about it at DrEllenCutler.com.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.